Introducing Impossible Burger. It's meat made entirely from plants that can be cooked up in all sorts of ways. It's nature and science working together. For a long time, it wasn't necessary to invent a better burger, but now it is. Throughout history, many inventions have changed the world for the better. The compass, the light bulb, and others, like diet water and the two-person sweatshirt, well, not so much. And then the impossible happened. Delicious meat from plants that's good for people and the planet, invented by a pretty cool scientist named Pat Brown. Hi, Pat. Our burger starts with proteins. Wheat protein and potato protein give our burger that familiar chew and valuable nutrition. Next are the flavors. Vitamins, amino acids, sugars, and heme come together.
What's this red stuff?
That is heme. It's the same molecule that carries oxygen in your blood and makes it red, but it's actually found in every living thing, even plants.
Interesting.
There's a huge amount of heme in red meat. Impossible Burger's heme is made by fermentation, and it's the key ingredient that makes our burger extra meaty.
Cool.
Here we have our binders. They hold it all together. Xanthan is made by fermentation, and konjac comes from a Japanese yam. These ingredients are used by chefs all around the world. And finally, fats. Our fat is made from coconut oil, with a dash of soybeans. This special combo makes our burger sizzle and delivers all the delicious flavors to your mouth. When you eat just 1/4 pound Impossible Burger instead of a burger from a cow, you save water equivalent to a 10-minute shower. You spare 18 driving miles worth of greenhouse gases, and you spare 75 square feet of land for wildlife and more. So for the meat devotees, Impossible Burger was made.
For me!
For us!
For you.
Hello. Okay, well, I'd like to present to you Nick Halla, who is the Chief Strategy Officer of Impossible Foods, which makes that. So as a quick question before we start off, how many of you here would eat a plant-based burger? All right. That's actually pretty good. That's not bad. All right, see how many we can get more after this then. I want to see if we get an improvement. Okay, well, Nick, thank you. Welcome into career. Well, tell us more about Impossible.
So we started Impossible more than 6 years ago to create a new food system to accelerate our change to a more sustainable, scalable system. Dr. Patrick Brown that you saw in the video, he was a researcher at Stanford for 25 years, researching cancer, genomics, medical diagnostics, but he took a sabbatical looking at where he could have the biggest impact with his career for the rest of it on the world. And he realized by far our reliance on animals for food was the biggest threat to the world's environment. And as a biochemist, he realized that we can create better products than animals can if we understand why people like them so much. And then we go in the plant-based world and pick out the pieces we need to create things like the Impossible Burger, which is the first product.
And yourself, like, how did you get started in this?
Yeah, this was very fitting to my background. I grew up on a dairy farm in Minnesota, so in the US, and so I've been in agriculture my entire life. I then went to General Mills, a big food company, and designed new products and manufacturing systems. But at that point, I left all of that and said, I wanted to work on changing the world environmentally for the rest of my life, and I didn't see that in food. So I did a bunch of work in solar, biofuels, batteries, and then I met Dr. Brown through our first investor, and the vision for Impossible was so big, and it fit my background so well that I ended up joining him from the start.
Which is amazing. How many people now?
We're about 200, 250 people.
250 people.
And growing very quickly.
Yeah.
And our team is still mostly scientists, engineers, farmers, chefs that will look at what actually makes meat taste so good. Why does it sizzle when you put it on the grill? What actually makes fish what it is? And the platform we've been developing can do anything an animal can, from fish to cheese to chicken to eggs and the burger. And so the team is a great team of scientists that go all the way to the molecular level to see what we need to do to create products that you and everybody here will love.
And that's one of the key things, I think, is that it's much more than a burger. You chose the burger because the burger is the pinnacle, really, of meat, I guess. Like, it's the thing that everybody gets around, right?
That's right. The first 2 years were really basic research understanding the fundamentals of what we need to do to build a new toolkit for how to make food. If we wanted to create a veggie burger, it would be easy. We can put beans and quinoa or whatever into a patty, and some vegetarians and vegans will eat it. But our target from day one was to make meat a better way and make better meats. And from that, the first 2 years were trying to find out all the things you need for steak, chicken, pork, bacon, and then build a platform from that. And then the burger, as a starting point, it's a huge industry. In the US, ground meat is a $30 to $35 billion industry. Worldwide, more than $100 billion. And it's hugely environmentally impactful. And as you saw up there, like the savings you can get just from one change in one burger is massive. And from a macro standpoint, it can have a huge effect. Today, the animal agriculture system uses upwards of 50% of the world's arable land surface. And the UN projects that meat consumption will increase 70% by 2050. It just doesn't work. So we needed to create a new platform for how to do anything an animal can do.
And that's where, we started SparkLabs Cultivate, which is our ag tech accelerator down in Australia, just because we truly care about this. This is like something that we're very, very passionate about. And we see China is eating more meat, like India is eating more meat, and we just can't have enough cows, right, to do this. So what are the environmental savings, but I guess water and other components and plants, right, is going to be the environmental impact of this. How do you guys adjust for your ingredients?
And that is our core mission from the start, is really around environment and creating a more sustainable, healthier food system. And I mentioned the land side. Most people don't realize that there's more greenhouse gas emissions from the animal farming industry than all transportation combined. And more than a quarter of all the world's fresh water each year is used directly for animal farming. And so for us, we look at those metrics very carefully. And the first Impossible Burger, our product, uses approximately 95% less land, 74% less water, and 87% less greenhouse gas emissions for the same product and a better product.
I mean, that's just incredible, just to hold on that. So 25% of the world's water goes into farming right now.
Animal
agriculture. And you're saving 74% on that, right? So if we switch to the Impossible platform around the world, I mean, we literally have an enormous amount of more fresh water coming across. I mean, that's right. That and the goal in itself is amazing.
Then you look at the other side, which is the pollution that comes out of the industry. And the vast majority of pollution going into our waterways, our lakes, our oceans is also driven by the animal agricultural system. And it's the fertilizer runoff, the waste runoff, and those have even bigger detrimental effects, even besides the fresh water that we use.
Now, taste of the burger, right?
That's what matters more than anything else.
That's what matters more. I know Carl down here, we're never going to get him to switch unless the taste is good, right? But it's amazing, right? And how do you keep improving that? How do you just the finesse of it?
So a lot of the trick is we are not limited by what an animal's body does for making food. So now we have this whole new toolkit for how to make food and make better food. So probably I'd say 3 years ago was the first time we'd be doing blind taste tests, always with meat consumers, because meat consumers are the ones that we have to hit and produce a product for, or else it really doesn't matter. And at that point was the first time that we were really putting products in front of them that they couldn't tell the difference from meat. Now, we still were not preferred. And so they couldn't tell a difference, but we weren't preferred. Now when we do blind taste tests, we are almost 50% preferred by meat consumers over the meat they get today. And so in 2 or 3 years, we've essentially caught up to the cow. But we're only getting better, and we already know a bunch of ways that we can make our product better, from the fat system, the way the flavors generate, the texture and the chew. And as we continue to research and build that with our team, we'll start delivering this. And next year and the year after, it'll be better and better to the point where the cow really is completely obsolete as a technology for food.
I love that. Now, just why do they choose it? Why do they say that 50%? What's the reason? When you survey them afterwards, what do they say about the Impossible Burger that is making them choose it?
I think I don't know on these exact ones because our sensory team will run this. Anecdotally, what I hear from people when they just taste, this is before knowing the environmental benefits, knowing the health benefits behind it. Just straight up.
Yeah.
There are slight differences. And so the product here, it forms a bit of a crust. You can get that caramelization where many of the burger chains will heat their grill really hot. So you put the burger on there to try to get that crust. And so the differentiation between a medium, a well done, because our product you can make into meatballs, burgers, tartare, really anything. And the way you cook it completely changes the flavor profile. So some people like the different textures in the chews. The flavor profile is very rich. And so it will depend on what people like in meat. You might like grass-fed meat. I might like the standard or U.S. corn-fed meat. And our preferences change, but the flavor profiles we like will be different.
So tell us about Asia, right? So you're here. What's your plans for because China and India. This is the big market. Korea loves meat.
It is true. Asia is a huge market, and when we started building the company, it was a worldwide mission from the start. One of our first mottos as a company is we are going to change the way the world looks from space. And the way we're going to do that is reversing a lot of these trends that are driven by the environmental impacts of the system. And as we started looking now at some international markets, more than 40% of all meat consumed today is consumed in Asia. And it's one of the fastest or the fastest growing market. You look at the meat consumption increase in China. India, the number of vegetarians and vegans in India continues to decrease very, very quickly. And so they're going to more resource-intensive foods as well. Korea, very meat-heavy. And so we are actually, next year, we are going to be launching in Asia. It's a critical market for us to really hit our mission, and we want to start very early.
Now, what's interesting here in Korea is basically the Korean barbecue, right? It's a social gathering. It's a social gathering around meat. Now, do you think you'll ever be able to be in that process of, you cook your Impossible Burger or your Impossible Meat in front of you in a social gathering? So it's not just turning them up on your plate.
Most definitely. So I think that's food is experience.
Yeah.
And when we went to market, we launched July 2016, so just over a year ago, with one of the top meat-loving chefs in America, David Chang. So we launched at Momofuku Nishi, and he is a chef that refused to ever even consider putting a veggie burger on his menu. And he's like, this is not a veggie burger, this is meat. And I will put my name behind it, I'll put it on my menu. And it's still selling like crazy. Then we have Michael Simon in the Midwest, who's the meat chef of the Midwest of the US, launching at Hop Dottie in Texas. And these are very meat-heavy restaurants and places that are known for that. And that's where we showed up because we are new and a better type of meat. In the end, this is going to be social gatherings. I have an inside track at this, but I've had many, many barbecues at my house with Impossible Burgers, with friends, neighbors. Back in my home farm town where I grew up on a dairy farm, so my cousins, grandparents, and all old friends from home came over, and they're like, this is amazing. I would change my diet for this if it was available. And as it becomes more and more available and part of culture, I think people really gravitate to it.
So Korea is trying to get into the future of food and the future of agricultural area. I would say there's still quite a long way to go, mainly because I don't think the research in universities is very much there yet. But if you were thinking wow, that's an amazing company, I'm a young grad or a young person thinking about it, and I want to get into this space, what do you think you would do?
I
wanted to join Impossible Foods.
Join Impossible. I think looking at for me personally, when I met Dr. Brown, I had a deep passion for doing something for the environment, and that was my motivation. And it stemmed from growing up on a dairy farm where I was outside in the environment really every day of my life, and seeing like the impact of what we were doing to that environment as well, and saying, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I think for a new grad, looking at impossible or otherwise, really looking at what excites you from a skill set standpoint, and also from an industry and an impact, and really what you'd want to work on is where I'd start. Now, for impossible, we need people really across the board. We have an amazing team of scientists and engineers, and that'll continue to grow because we're just getting started. And we have ground beef, which will continue to get better and better and better, but then steak, chicken, cheese, fish is a huge, huge worldwide issue as well. So as we continue to drive the business, we'll reinvest that very quickly into our research team. So I think there will be a lot of opportunities in research across biochemistry, biology, food science, and really any of the main basic functions. Engineering, and my background in education was food engineering, and I think that's going to continue to grow because we'll need a lot of people implementing these systems all the way to the business and the brand, because we would not be able to drive the change if we didn't create a brand that people loved and products that they could follow and get excited about. So when our team would be going to some of these Asian countries, when we were thinking about where would we go, it was amazing to us that the vast majority of the chefs and restaurants we talked to already knew of Impossible. And we were in like 20 restaurants at that point. Now I think we're between 300 and 400 restaurants because we just opened up our first real production facility that will take us over 1 million pounds a month. But the word behind what we're doing and the excitement behind this, because it's such a big worldwide need, along with delicious food.
And when it comes to production, are you going to be looking at producing all over the world? I mean, do you want to, do you need to be close to the source of the plants, the water, etc.? I mean, you obviously don't want to be shipping everything back to the US, I guess. Is that the vision as you would scale this?
Yeah, looking at, we're a very environmentally driven company by what we do. If you look at the impact of shipping versus consumption, the vast, vast majority of the impact comes from consumption. So the best thing we can do from an environmental standpoint is produce our product as quickly as possible. Now, we also are very cognizant of it is a big industry that's going to take a lot to change, and our first Oakland production site is really the proof of concept that we can scale, we can build a market, and we can build economics, and that really can drive this industry forward. And we'll start seeding the market out of that, but very shortly after, we will be working worldwide, setting up local and regional production and supply chains, because that's how we really change the entire system behind it, working on our own and with a lot of partners. So to change a $1.5 trillion industry that's growing at that speed, we're going to be working with a lot of partners in the food system and externally.
I think you guys are literally one of the most exciting companies on the planet. And just finally, before we go out and see if there's any questions, the platform. So as you move from meat to the next, tell us just how does the platform scale into other foods again?
We've done a lot of work on this. The first couple years were research on anything, just find out what we need to do. Then applying that to the ground meat product and burger, which is so iconic to culture, US and worldwide, helped us really focus. But as we thought about focus, there's a lot of things we needed to do for the burger that also applies to all these other meat categories. So for example, the protein heme that drives all the flavor and aroma of meat. Whether you're chicken, bacon, fish, or ground beef, heme is the essential characteristic and component of making those products. And so as 2-3 years into our research, the team was making different flavor systems with the amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and heme to figure out what they could make. And I walked through our research center, and I was like, wow, this smells like bacon. What are you guys doing here? And I was like, well, we're not making that now, but remember that, and we'll come back to it. So a lot of the things that we're doing on the base, even for the ground beef product, apply to all these products. And even heme is important for eggs and egg flavor. It's important for all these different things that you do.
Well, so any questions for Nick? Anything out there? Right, so first question, how many more are going to eat plant-based? Who's going to eat an Impossible Burger now? I think that we doubled it, maybe? Before we go through, are there any questions about plants, agriculture, environmental? Yep.
So the question is everything really around heme, or is there a lot more science behind it? Heme is an easy one to conceptualize because it is so front-facing, but the same process has to go for the texture and the transformation. So as you saw in the video, there's a few different components that go in, and another key transformation of meats is going from a raw state to a cooked state, which changes the texture, where like ground beef you can mold into a burger or a meatball, and then once you cook, it's firm. And so we have a lot of technology behind how we can get proteins that are functional that can drive that transformation. And then for a system like dairy, the flavor systems of dairy products are going to be driven by other things besides hemes and a lot more in the fat side. And so each product will have different drivers, and it's the flavor, the aroma, the texture, the handling, the way things cook. And each part, we really have to look at what drives that function in meat, and looking for the pieces, meat, fish, and dairy, then looking for the pieces that we need to recreate and create better products.
Hi, I was just curious how you address any safety concerns people have around the processing of these plants into something that they haven't seen before, which is something that sizzles and tastes like meat, but actually isn't meat. And I'm sure that question comes up all the time.
So I think it starts from the beginning, where Dr. Brown, as MD, PhD, medical researcher at Stanford for 25 years, our head of health and nutrition is an MD, PhD, our chief science officer headed a 700-person organization at the National Institute of Health. And it's so core to who we are that we have to produce safe and healthy products. To do this, it also still really doesn't matter. And the way that we've now reached out to consumers with that is we are very transparent in everything that we do. Here's how we do this, and here's why we do it, and here's what it means. Our product has no cholesterol or hormones or antibiotics. It has more protein and less fat than meat from a cow. We can control and put in all the micronutrients that people want from meat without putting the things in that they really don't want to get. And for us, it's really from a consumer side, being very transparent about how we do it, why we do it, and the reception's been very good.
Yeah. Guys, we get the mic. Where's the mic disappeared to? Here it is.
First of all, I agree with you. This company is one of the most fascinating company in the world, looking at their intellectual property, technology, R&D, engineering, everything, right? In short, how much do I need to buy your company then?
We are not for sale.
Yeah, I know. But you got some investment or listed stock market plan?
So we've been, from the start, Dr. Brown's vision is to really create a company for the long term. And so we have been building behind that thesis that this is not a food company. This is a technology platform company that can really change the system. And so we had to build it differently than any company in essentially our world had before as well. And the best way to do that is pull in visionary investors. So some of our main investors are Horizons Ventures and Li Ka-shing, Bill Gates, Temasek from Singapore, and people that really, and investors that can really scale with us.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a big fan of the Impossible Burger. I tried it at a variety of different places at Momofuku Nishi, as well as in a few places in San Francisco.
All right, so what did you like about the burger?
I keep telling people that if I hadn't known to order it, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell. And I think for me, what I liked about it a lot, it was the juiciness and the texture in particular. That's what always stopped me from being too gung-ho about quinoa burgers or whatever you want to call it, right? It's like you said, it was a part of the experience, and obviously the flavor as well. But really, the texture, I think that was the thing that really sold me on. Oh wow, it not only tastes like a burger, it feels like meat. My question is, one of the reasons why I think, meat or beef in particular has become so prevalent across, just our diet has been the price and the affordability of the meat, and partially driven by corn subsidies in the United States. How do you guys plan, or what are the plans of like kind of getting to that? You can get to the flavor profile, you can get 50% preferred, but the scalability of it really, I think, is going to be to help fulfill your mission is going to get to be a price point where I can go buy it at a grocery store and make burgers for myself. I don't have in my backyard as you did. But what are some of the challenges you see in kind of doing that? Because that's what really drove, I think, beef to kind of being what it is today. It was just affordable protein that everybody can have access to.
Yeah, and affordability is going to be more and more critical as we continue to scale. So we opened up our first production facility in September. That takes us more than 100 times the scale that we were before. And so that's the first proof point in actually scaling to a scale that actually matters in the market. And we build economics behind the entire production system and market. And as we build a margin through that, then we really reinvest quickly in the US and worldwide. Now our price and market in the US in restaurants, we're not in retail yet, is anywhere from $7, $8 on the low end for a burger to up to, at some of the gourmet places, $19 US for a burger, and that's the range. And our price is more in that gourmet burger range right away as we're at small scale. But the technology and the system is so much more efficient than what you have with animals, where with a cow taking, in the US, which is one of the most efficient systems you could have from a nutrient conversion standpoint, it's about a 3% efficient technology of taking plant-based nutrients and proteins into what we consume out as meat. So if we go directly to the plant source, we can actually be an order of magnitude or more efficient from the feedstock. Then as we scale, we should be much, much more affordable, and all the models show that we'll be much more affordable as we scale in the US and worldwide than what you get from animals today. And that's where a really big tipping point is.
Thank you.
Very good. One more question out back there as well. Last one. There's right behind you.
Hi, my name is Nick. My question is a little bit like a political question. If your industry kind of win the market, then all the meat farmers and the association of the U.S. whatever the meat manufacturer whatever that will impact it. So, are you already receiving anti kind of political movement from this traditional industry, blocking what you are doing and researching? And my second question is, another angle for you, what you do is, if I were a vegan activist, then I would be really, really wanting to support you, because they have a really compassion for animals. They think that they have a similar intelligence with the humans, so they kind of ethically that there are vegan activists who out there really rescuing slaughterhouses, animals, and things like that. So overall, I was wondering what is your political stance on these issues, and how is your relationship with the traditional industry, and when you have a political
the big
impact,
questions for the end, right?
then how will you tackle this resistance from a traditional industry? Who will you ally for the...
Okay, perfect. Well, there we go.
Well, I won't get too much into politics in general, but I grew up on a dairy farm. I've been in agriculture my entire life, and when I talked to Dr. Brown, my first conversation after I had the initial talk was to my brother, and all he wants to do is farm. We've raised animals our entire life in my family, and his response was, "This is great, because the system we use today does not scale, and it's a really broken industry. And as a farmer, we need farmers as much as the meat industry does, and we do a lot of engagement across that, working on research, scaling our production much more sustainably, efficiently, and we can also build a much more economically friendly model. If we are more efficient, we can get more value per acre of land." And from a government politics standpoint, the biggest thing we can do, we're not going to rely on policy or subsidies or anything like that for what we're doing. Make great products, be transparent about how we do it, and build a market behind them. And that is our biggest focus.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Nick. A round of applause. Thanks very much for Nick for coming today. I'm sure Trump, who has like 4 Big Macs a day or something, right? We just need to get him to switch to 4 Impossible Burgers a day, and then you rock it, man.
Yeah, then that's our whole environmental savings
That's
right there.
it. Yeah, totally. Yeah. He won't like the environmental saving bit, though, will he? No. So, thank you very much. Great. Thanks, Nick. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.